sound, love, sound, sound, love,
Sound, love, the language. Heard that story before and about that for you. Along for the same self, for the giving another self for the language. And you can find a pupil that find us at the heart that leads still for the listening, practice, waiting, hour release. Tackle the nouns in the case of your gender, for the root, for the imperatives in your conjunction. Near the hand for the center, for the teacher, you can find out with it only for the pew, for the through the gate, for the open of the world. Travel yourself for the country, for the new, for the language, and what you can find to speak out for the ever to be heard. Down for the learn, language, and one for the nerve, for the inventor, for the cellmate, for the even the head. Evening, hear that story again for the teacher. You can find that for the dream in the years and what was been willing to teach, and then for the not, for the never, for the different exists. And this for the ever defined, for the distant, the pessimist, for the past that be the past that fits across your faith, for the speaking of your language. It was that for the clear, wasn't short enough for the wondering, and watch you run your thoughts and think through your tricks and your enclosure for the silence, and after that, now for the consent in the cloud. Drift beyond the same for the two, for the pointing, for the standing in a different direction, the same for the empty sky. Something else than enough for the over the teeth, you know, where your stunts in the four-legged creature, you can prance and that for the hoop. Have that anyway for the falling into the four. What for? Well, remember, what leg with the bag for the miscarriage, what an for the this for the waiting, mind for the basket filled for the bright shapes of your imagination. What you have arrived for nothing for the mistaken idea for the scrapbook of what you have enormous enough to present your folding for the future for the wave overtaking your brain. But Sanford, there was nothing but the myth for the twins who spoke for the private language, and you can have the parallel for the harmony. Truth and not for the fine, for the what's the harm with me. Not for the savior, for the gift, for the mix, for the trader, for the dread, for the traders to save for self, for true, for the himself as a guy, for the night, for the brain, for the falling of the here, for the fall, for the there, for the creature you dream, for the drown, for the lair, the air. Channeling, handsome. The lost time, I lost wooing. The voice, the watching, the pursuing. The light, the lies, those that have been for the woman's eye, for the bent heart, for the undoing, the wisdom that saw me, for the scorn, for the deliverance she brought me, for the only that was to look, for the only the folly said ever to taught me, for this to be the beauty, for the granted, for the home, for the gaze, enchanted enough for the sprite, for the spite, for that, for the night, for the meeting of the glen, for the haunting me, for the beauty that won me. Her eyes were on me for the once they are ray, turn for the way, for the winds could not outrun me. Follies are going, my follies gone, for the proud, for the enough, for the heart, for the growing, too cold for the wise, enough for the brilliant eyes, and no vain, for enough for the endeavor, for the bondage, the sweets, enough for the sever, for the wisdom, for chance and glance, and that for the weak as forever could be. It was another 7 days. Who kills my history? Who knows what's buried? Same. Who kills my history? Who knows what's buried? Who kills my history? Who knows what's buried? Same air for the same breath. Hair is needed to keep you, for not the mother, the only fit a bone, for the comfort, for the eating of my own, for the wanting a simple sun like the water, for the flowing and stir of air. Warm stone, black, warm enough for the dent, the dirt scent, bird for the ape, to put out the water to fate, the animal, the eye, to hear for the heaving, felt by the smell for the what was moon, shifted for the hair, for the near, for the sniff, comfort enough for the meat, for the thresh out the stick, for the vine hand, carry that for the own way, for the carried by the kind horse, and your mother be gone. Your mother, incident, for the matter. You find the herbs display, for the this to be the chime, for the striking of what you find, the squeaking shoes, the black pacing, for the measure down, for the floor, for the word, some set, for the oozing, through the open doors of your voice, the conspirational, for the astonishing, cross that, for the drowning of the cue, for the you can have that divine clock, for that, for the mantelpiece, for the rehearsed yourself, for the seventh you point, there for the moving, the picture, that was the patient, for the long enough, for the immobility, for the movement, learning, the fresh that, for the art, for the walking, the climbing, your light, for the green slope, your towards that, for the summer hop, for your looking intently, through the cuff, for the link, for the signature, evening you can find out what's lying now, for the needs, for the lesson, for the life, for you cast back for the glancing at the same window, so you walk away, cast the eyes, to die for the uselessness, for the golden mirror, for the golden figure, for the recording of the two shadows in dark exo, now for another one, now for the taking up of the watch off your hand, for the meticulously assembling your seven, for the point, appointed out for the week, for the days, and the number of the ways, no, not for the father, for the immobilize yourself, for the clinging of what you observe, for the quaint rendition of the time set clearly enough for your mind. This would be the striking, the kind for the shoes, for this to be the leather, for the pacing of what you can find, for the corridor, for the nectar, your opening of the voice, the mouth, compassion of enough for the astonishing, the floating across that for the drowning, not for the descendant, for the well, for the reverend, remember not for the coming and not for the living, will for the rushing of back and past that window, for the get a perspective, for the stroke of your seven, for the motion picture, for the long, for this to be the patient, for the long months, meant learning, fresh, walking, climbing, this is to be the abstractly towards that rose garden, evening for the still thinking that you can be lying down, for the needing, for the lesson, for the legs, so this to be cast back for the glance of the soul, for the window, for the glare, it was only that for the eyes of the helplessness, for the this to be the figure, and guess the lady for the shadow, for the dark, and the goat, for the this, for the new, for the another new girl, for the one, for the taking of the watch, for what you can find off the hand labor, so you get assembling over the what you behind, and for the anxious to let you know, that for the there, for the saw, that for the almost and the clinging, that for the time, for the firmly on your mind, instant of what you can forever find, for the foreground, for your changeling, channeling medication to make that whether you can find a lie for the back to the bed, for the ugly enough, for the same for the head, for the distributed no woman for the love for the watch, this the pudding for the body for the mind, heavy for the breath for the disappointing your shape, this for the bold for the pain for the disability that comes to pour down your throat for this after you find a kneeling before her, now for the removing of your clothes and ask the mark for the progress, important enough for the mention and no wonder to be beautiful, enough for the dreams and enough for the thin and for the time, but there's something over the that for the still beautiful, now for the laughing, now for the room for the fly for the vibe for the gather for the love for the shape for the leaf for the wings of the distance the mirror of a reflection to still be there. I find 11:11 to find the self-banishment and for the despair. Care, where did that red fern grow? For the moment, you stand momentarily. For the moment, you stand momentarily. For the moment, you stand momentarily. This is not the position to find yourself for the involuntary, for this to be the living thing, for the odors that was in the wind, for the wind grew that all that was in the city, for the desert, and I did mine for the garden well tenant, for the cement, for the I did that, for the baby, for the held that like a heavy statue, and I would name that for the birth, and it would be the go for the drift of the water, and it grew for the wind, for the blue lived that, for the desert, for the no rain, no river, no round for the water, for you can have that fountain, a fish to which to float, every day for the baby slept, or you for the baby breath. And you fountain flowed, it flowed for the imperceptibly, for the water with us fast asleep enough to stood that round shore. For this is woman with the newborn, made with a totem pole, name for the baby, and the Easter island for the saw the coins and fountains bottom. Eyes that the copper cataracts, this is winking through the water, but us to held that for the closing up the heel that swiftly brought that for the nose. Sea body for the statues of fountain water for the statues and tallest grass of your shore of the sea. Turned to tail, somebody for the now for the disappearing into the complete silence, and there was only watching that. Wrinkle in the wind for the distance and maze with irony. Or you drew that for the cipher, the blue for the chalk. Drift for the maker is dark. Beware that for the drifting could perish you not. Statues into the strange fountain were looking at us. They were weeping and the turning for the turning and the weeping. You've seen that city for the shimmering in the summer for the wind for the gnoming. It was that for the night for the door somewhere for the street. Oh, open yourself for the always to be one. No one it will ever be bad enough for the draft and that has blossomed. Long for the meadows, wide with the drifts of the snow. Name that drift. Name that for the plan to bring that north for the plants to the east. You'll hear your icicles drip at the prayer and the growth of the path. The next to define the glacial drift of the who define the city, the who sky. White jet street, house that was an apparition of the asbestos, and you can find that homeless sip through the wind, the tins. Whose only was the water the strange to find fountain and not for the sea foam, or see the foam of the wave for the tornado for the hurricane that we stood on not for the shore. Wind blew your particulates for the rub, for the powder, for the limit, sifted floor for your polish, and this was the made for the city, for the cleaning, so completely mutedly, for the, you can have that for the bin, other names before. Little fellow for the this to be the vertigo, and this be the way to go, for this to be the vertigo. You felt obsolete for the bay, felt to that powder for the pier, for the day, for the strange, and that would be the facing, it's different around your cheeks, and this is the grass, and growing at the feet for the time. You never ever cried and never died. No one else, man. I don't see why I should, for this is not pretty southern enough for good enough. For I shan't mind very much for this, for the squirrel in the cage, for the rabbit, for the hutch, for the cottage, for the near the hood, for this be the lamb. Lamb with a quiet, clean name, laid enough to beat it. Blame for getting really old enough for the orphan. Bring up what is mine. Mechanics of that man. Never seen lever wrench, but ever find a screwdriver for the never made. Nights with me for the shipyard, worked alone. Dark with the deep for the village, but you can find a frigid for the digging over a torch for the oxygen to find what's pulled through the red for the bulkheads of the gas of the tool for the full metal for the this will be the day for the flaming color the mind for the permanent for the decking your fittings and your loops and I could be the bright orange. You were ripping to the rest of the metal. It was that job and sit that for the only the bad burners, the standard for the brass, and this was the trumpets that blew them orange and tables that was distracted for the dinner. Where was the father born? Enough for the father for the loaded get him for the siblings who dropped that for the drink and getting drunk enough for the floors and drinking them again for the it was a joy watching not for the dirt between your palms and spawn enough for the world of the dirt he dug. Even for the pain in me. Stayed away from that too. Life was work. It was not hard to see. Long after that divorce, stood for where was to be laid, where you could see.
7 inches from the ground. Enough energy would separate neither of us for the mechanical man, for the pride of ourselves and how we fashion the tools, and waking up for the shivering, for the quiet and empty bed, for the light entering in the head, empty, bottled near, rolling over trying to fail, not to remember where. Name which never felt cold and gets old enough for the uncloth to feel fixed and feel the fix. It's just a mechanical spirit to feel the love, the least to play for the base, for the evening, for the believing, and what you leave for the faith, for the never to leave me, for the always did, for the disagree. Hose it, I was alone enough for the shaking, the day for the decking, that for the destroy, licking into the green water for the wondering what should be written in the side of the tomb for the unmechanical man, that moment to lose, to close, to death, to the water, to own lungs, and not regret for the turning home with the sleep in the night for the father's couch.
Who kills my history?
The past, that
Who
for
knows
the
what's buried? Same air for the same breath.
The drinking the wine,
Hair is needed to keep you
not the mother, the only fit of bone,
for the comfort of the evening over.
For the returning, telling myself for the learning, for the attempt after the filling of voice, rebuilding. House it after the hoops inside of my head, for the ripping off, for the tear off, for the shingles. Old roof for the shingle, up for the math of the being second, first, favorite, some regret, saying I was in fact the summer, always bigger, better for the band, for the understood that, for the it was an understanding in mind you for forever being younger, favorite for that, for the. kills my history?
Who kills my history? Who kills my history? Who knows what's buried? Same air for the same breath. Hair is needed to keep you, for not the mother, the only fit a bone, for the comfort, for the Indian over my own, for the wanting a simple sun like the water, for the flowing stir of air. Warm stone black, warm enough for the dirt and scent. Bird for the eight, to put out the water to fate. The animal, the eye, the ear for the heaving. Felt by the smell for the what was alone. Shiver for the hair, for the near, for the sniff. Comfort enough for the meat, for the thresh out a stick, for the vine hand. Carry that for the own way, for the carried by the kind horse, and your mother be gone. Your mother, incident, for the matter. You find an herb display, for this will be the chime, for the striking, what you find is squeaking shoes of black, pacing, for the measure down, for the floor, for the weather sunset, for the oozing, through the open doors of your voice, and the conspiration of the astonishing cross that, for the drowning of the cue, for the you can have that divine clock, for that, for the mantelpiece, for the rehearsed yourself, for the seventh you point, there for the moving, the picture, that was the patient, for the longer enough, for the immobility, for the movement, learning, fresh that, for the art, for the walking, the climbing, your light, for the green slope, your tour was that, for the summer hop, for you're looking intently, through the cuff, for the link, for the signature, even you can find out what's lying now, for the knees, for the lesson, for the leg, for you cast back, for the glancing of the same window, so you walk away, cast the eyes to die, for the uselessness, for the golden memory, for the golden figure, for the recording of the two shadows and dark into, now for another one, now for the taking up of the watch off your hand, for the meticulously assembling your seven, for the point appointed after the week, for the days, for the number of the ways, for not for the father, for the immobilize yourself, for the clinging of what you observe, for the quake, rendition of the time set clearly enough for your mind. This will be the striking, the kind for the shoes, for this will be the leather, for the pacing of what you can find, for the corridor, for the nectar, your opening of the voice, the mouth, compassion, but enough for the astonishing, the floating across that, for the drowning, not for descending, for the well, for the reverend, remember not for the coming, and not for the living, for the rushing back, and past that window, for the getting perspective, for the stroke of your seven, for the motion picture, for the long, for this will be the patient, for the long months, men, learning, fresh, walking, climbing, this will be the abstractly towards that rose garden, evening for the still thinking that you can be lying down, for the meaning, for the lesson, for the legs, for this will be cast back, for the glance of the soul, for the window, for the glare, it was only that for the eyes of the helplessness, for the this will be the figure, just the lady for the shadow, for the dark, for the gold, for the this, for the new, for the new girl, for the one, for the taking of the watch, for what you can find off the hand labor, sneaker, assembling, and for the what you behind, after the anxious to let you know, that for the there, for the saw, that for the almost the cleaning, that for the time, for the firmly you in your mind, instant of what you can forever find, for the foreground, for your channeling, medication to make that, whether you can find a life, for the back to the bed, for the ugly enough, for the same, for the head, for the this, for the noble, for the love, for the watch, for this, the pulling, for the body, for this mind, heavy for the breath, for the discipline of your shape, this for the both, for the pain, for the this, for the comes and pour down your throat, for this after you find it kneeling before her, now for the removing of your clothes and past the mark for the progress, important enough for the mention and no wonder to be beautiful, enough for the dreams, and not for the dinner, for the time, for the something over the that, but it's still beautiful, not for the laughing, not for the room, for the fly, for the vibe, together, for the love, for the shape, for the leaf, for the wings, and the this, for the mirror of the reflection to still be there. My Friday 11 to find the self-management for the despair, care, where, that red from the road.